What up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Indy-Analysis. Today, we're going to be talking about the Detroit Pistons. I'm your co-host, Jonathan Frid.
And I am Alan J. Pandian. And today, we got special guest Coach Herblet, huge Pistons fan. How you doing, Coach?
Great, man. Excited to be here. Diehard Pistons fan. Goes all the way back to the Bad Boys days. Just excited to talk about the new blood, new young talent here at the Detroit Pistons. So, yeah, I'm happy to be here, boys.
Okay, so
Coach.
Good to know. All right, good.
Yeah. So, yeah, with that, I'll give it back to Frid, where you can go with the primarization.
So, the Detroit Pistons, I would say right now, I'm sorry, I don't mean any offense, Coach Herblet, but right now when people hear about the Pistons, they kind of tend to overlook them and not really think too much about them. And that could be seen in the record last year, sitting at 23-59. Not great. But they are head coached by Dwayne Casey as the head coach. And this is what their primary roster is looking like. Starting point guard, you got Killian Hayes. And then you got Cade Cunningham at the shooting guard position. And then Saddiq Bey, Jeremy Grant, and Isaiah Stewart. And then I would like to say that those are the starters, but obviously we don't know for sure, but that's just our best estimate. And then off the bench, you got players like Corey Joseph, Frank Jackson, Hamidou Diallo, Kelly Olynyk, and then Marvin Bagley. And then one significant pickup that they had in this year's draft was that stud coming out of Purdue, Jaden Ivey. Picked at 5?
Yep. 5.
Yeah, 5.
Yeah. A quick stat that Coach Herblet brought to our attention was that on this roster, there are 11 players under 24 years old and 5 under 21 years old. So
that is crazy.
That's like a college team, kind of. So,
for real.
So with that, I'm gonna pass it back to Coach Herblet. What pieces do you like on this roster, what pieces do you like on this roster?
Yeah, I'll point out we did trade Jeremy Grant. He's at Portland now, so I think that's going to be a big loss for the Pistons. But we'll see how that pans out with that trade, getting a couple draft picks in there. But yeah, the young talent. Obviously, we can't go without saying Cade Cunningham. Right, he's a stud talent, 20 years old. Right, again had a great rookie year last year. I think if he wasn't hurt the first part of the year, he obviously would be top 2 in that rookie of the year category. And then we bring in Isaiah Stewart, 21 years old. And again, I just think Saddiq Bey, 23 years old. I just think that young talent, if again, GM, Troy, if he can keep those guys together, I do think the future's really bright in Detroit. Again, I know last few years we've kind of been the bottom dwellers in the Eastern Conference, but again, I love the young talent that he's bringing in. I'm pretty excited about the direction that they're going here. So.
Yeah, for sure. And me personally, I'm really high on Cade Cunningham. I think he's going to be like the perfect combo guard, facilitator, scorer type of player for this modern NBA. He's tall, great passer, good defender. He's developing his offensive arsenal very well. So I'm excited for Cade Cunningham. Saddiq Bey, a great shooter. He's been kind of streaky the past few seasons, but we saw him in one game score 54 points with 11 threes. So we know he can shoot the ball when he's on. So it's just developing that consistency. And finally, I want to talk about Marvin Bagley. Bagley, he has been kind of overlooked. He's been kind of the guy that people say that the Kings drafted him over Luka. But in Sacramento, he didn't really get the opportunity. He was injured a lot. And like I said, he didn't get the opportunity to play. So I think in Detroit, with a larger opportunity under Dwayne Casey, who we saw him use Jonas Valanciunas in Toronto very well, making him an all-star level player. I think that he can have a similar impact on Marvin Bagley. Yeah, with that, I'll pass it back to Coach Herblet. And we talked about Dwayne Casey a little bit, but with their GM, Troy Weaver, I'll pass it back to you. What do you think about him?
Yeah, I'm excited. My boy Joe Dumars was the GM for many years. After he retired, he's a guy that played back in the 80s. Many of you guys probably don't know him that are watching this podcast. But
I know Joe Dumars. Don't play me like that.
He's one of my favorite players of all time. But I do think Troy Weaver coming in, being the GM, I think he's doing a lot of good things. And I think he's creating a little buzz and excitement there in Detroit. This is a quote from him. He said he likes competitive, selfless, tough players. He's not necessarily looking for that superstar, and that's kind of the Pistons' MO. It really has been all the years that they were successful. There weren't any. I mean, they had great players. Don't get me wrong, but they're not playing with the Jordans and LeBrons of the day. So I'm pretty excited about the direction he's going with the team. Again, a lot of buzz around Cade. I don't think since we drafted Grant Hill, there's been this much buzz about a kid this young that's coming in with the talent that he has. So, yeah, we're pretty pumped about that. And again, Dwayne Casey, I think, very underrated coach. Did a lot of great things in Toronto, and I think he's a player's coach coming in. I think guys are going to buy into his system, and again, he's creating that same excitement. So I know you guys laugh, but I think the future's bright up in Detroit, and it does get us pretty excited. So.
Yeah. Talking about the future and also combining your one of your favorite players, Joe Dumars. We look back at the '80s with the Bad Boys, and then the 2000s with Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Ben Wallace, Tayshaun Prince, Rasheed Wallace. Those were like pretty grit and grind teams. And with a player like Cade Cunningham, bringing in Jaden Ivey, two like Jaden Ivey scoring-minded guard, and Cade another very capable scoring guard. Do you think that moving forward, Detroit's identity is going to shift to more of like guards who can score, or like more of a offensive type of thing? In the past, it's been more defensive oriented with Wallace and Bill Laimbeer. Do you think in the future it'll be more scoring and offensive oriented?
That's a great question. Again, with those two guys, more finesse guys, but I do think Casey does teach team defense, and I do think that's going to be a big part of it. I love Isaiah Stewart. I think he could have probably played back in the bad boy era. Just a tough, gritty guy. So if you can combine those couple guys, again, that are great guard play guys, again, I think you got to have the toughness. And you guys know, to win championships, you got to have good defense.
Yeah.
And I do think he's got some pieces in place there where they could continue on with the Pistons tradition of getting after it and being gritty and playing great defense and shutting teams down. So again, they're going to have to score. Obviously, right now the defense isn't great. If you look at some of the stats from last year, ranked 22nd with opponents' points per game, which isn't great, obviously. So there's a lot of work to be done there. But I do think Dwayne Casey he does preach defense, and he'll get it done. I'm confident in that.
Yeah, and we're currently living in a league where it's very offensive centered. Like, I saw a stat recently, it's like in like the early 2000s ish, the games were finishing with like scores of like 90 to 80 or whatever, and now scores are like consistently like 120 points per team. So obviously defense is definitely not a primary focus right now, while offense is. But like we said, if the Detroit Pistons, if they want to be successful, they have to buy into defense. And I really like what you said, Coach, about Dwayne Casey. He might have been kind of the missing piece that this Detroit team needs, just to get in that culture, get in that mindset of defense does, in fact, win championships. And I'm not going to say that this team is going to do it right now, because we talked about how young they are. But if they build that culture now, just think, 5 to 6 years when they're all hitting their prime. Like, that could be kind of like potentially scary. So I would say Detroit needs to like be on people's radars for sure, especially now when they're young and vigorous.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and also looking at the East, obviously you got the top dogs. Obviously you got the Cavs with Donovan Mitchell, Giannis.
Yeah.
With the Bucks. You got all these teams that made the playoffs last year, but you also have some teams like Toronto and Chicago who are like, they're kind of iffy. They're kind of floaters. They're playing teams, and I think, me personally, I think Detroit, if they do put the pieces together with a defense, if they start developing their players at a steady pace, if Jaden Ivey and who they picked, Jalen Duren, if those young players do make a real impact, I think they can definitely make a play-in game as a 9th or 10th seed and compete for a playoff spot. So it's just all about kind of meshing that all together, developing, progressing your players. So I definitely agree with what both of you said. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Frid to talk about some off-season moves.
So some off-season moves that the Detroit Pistons were a part of this year. Let's talk about free agency real quick. they re-signed Marvin Bagley, and then they re-signed Hamidou Diallo. I definitely said that right. Then they re-signed Corey Joseph, re-signed Rodney Magruder, and then they signed Kevin Knox, which obviously not a blockbuster deal, but it's something.
Yeah.
And then Coach Herblet touched on this before, but they did trade Jeremy Grant to the Blazers for a first and second round pick, which honestly could be kind of helpful for this team. Obviously, a team that's kind of rebuilding, kind of buying. Well, I don't know if they're classified as buying. I would say rebuilding. And a team that's rebuilding, draft picks, you can't get enough of them. So we'll see.
Yeah, and in addition to that, they also did, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, they traded for Jalen Duren, a center from, I think it was Memphis. I'm not 100% sure, but they traded for Jalen Duren and Kemba Walker, but they did buy Kemba Walker out, and they traded a first and second round pick to New York for those two. So Jalen Duren, a very strong defensive center, a 6'11", 7-foot type of center. I think maybe a backup to Isaiah Stewart or Marvin Bagley playing the 4 or 5, that type of role. And then that would definitely bring a lot of a paint presence to their defense. And yeah, I'm going to pass it back to Coach. What do you think of these moves? Obviously there wasn't a lot that Detroit did. Not many blockbuster moves, but I'll pass it back. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think Marvin Bagley is going to make a difference. I think he'll play quite a bit. I do love Duren. He had a great summer. Again, 6'10", 6'11" guy out of Memphis. Played well there. Again, I'm excited about just you need those guys coming off the bench that are going to make a difference. And again, going back to the teams that I loved, right? We had guys that came off the bench. You had your core 5, but you got to have guys that you can interchange and come off. So again, I don't get all that excited about some of these other guys. Again, like I said, Bagley I think is going to make a difference. Duren, I think he's young, but I do think by mid-season, end of the year, he's gonna be in the rotation for sure. So yeah, we're excited about that. Again, I love your optimism, Alan, on the idea of them playing in a play-in game. I don't know if we're there yet, but I do think we've got the pieces in place, and we mentioned a little bit. You got to have a 3-point shooter, and our boy Sadiq Bey is a little bit streaky. If he can, gain some consistency with that, Jaden Ivey is a good shooter in college. I think if we can get him, it's going to open stuff up for Cade. So yeah, we're excited about that. I think that's kind of the missing unknown right now. If we can develop a couple of those guys into shooters, maybe we can get one of those, last seeds in the playoffs. I don't know if we're there yet, but I hope we are.
Yeah, I'm always an optimist. As you can watch our Sacramento video. We believe Kings is our hashtag for that team. So I don't know. I'm always optimistic about young teams. I love young teams. I love teams that are rebuilding and developing young players. I think they're doing it the right way, and instead of just going out and trying to get a bunch of free agents or something. I think they're doing it the right way. And I really like Detroit in their grit and grind identity. They have a set identity, and they're trying to teach that identity and mold their players that way. So I really appreciate Detroit for that. And any last thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I just throw out there, I kind of got my shrine back there with
whatever.
Chauncey and Rip there. Got Chauncey over here. We got the all-time greats. We didn't talk anything about Dennis Rodman or Rick Mahorn
or Bill Laimbeer.
Bill Laimbeer. Alan mentioned Bill a little bit, but those are the guys that really set the tone and started what Pistons basketball. And again, I was 9, 10, 11 years old when I was first watching the Pistons, and it tells you how old I am. But that's when I just
no, you're not old.
I started to develop that love, just really of basketball and NBA basketball, and I just loved watching the Pistons. And then when they kind of came back in early 2000s through 2000, winning the Eastern Conference Championship year in and year out, and then winning that championship in 2004, it just kind of got me back fired up and going. And again, I took a few years off, but now I'm back fired up. So I think we're finally going back in that right direction. We got guys in place where, again, if we can keep them in place, and like I said, if the GM continues to do what he's doing, the future is definitely bright, which I'll go along with Alan's optimism there. I do think it's bright. I don't know if we're there yet this year. I'm hoping, right? But I think it is bright for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And next year we'll see the Pistons rocking some new threads, going back to this
boy.
throwback logo.
I love it.
Yeah. So I'm a huge fan of this logo than the old Detroit basketball kind of logo thing. But
yeah.
So I'll pass it to Frid, and he can take it away.
Yeah. So I got nothing else to say. I think we encapsulated the Detroit Pistons perfectly. Coach Herblet, we do want to wish you a heavy thank you. Taking time out of your very, very busy schedule to be here. Thank you so much.
It's been fun, man. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, good.
It's always our pleasure.
We told him to say that, but it's okay. So one last thing. It's a tradition, guys. I have to do it. Let's shout out the gram, Alan, shall we?
You got it, Fred.
Hey, Coach, you got Instagram, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Oh yeah, we can.
So
we'll hit you
in
up with
case
a
you
follow.
haven't already.
All right.
Wait, that's true. But like, of course you've already followed the Pick
I
Up
do
podcast
follow you
by now.
guys. I do follow.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, okay.
Yeah,
We'll hit you with a follow back.
He's not
Max.
Max.
That's true. We got Max Dub on here, and he did not follow us. Yeah. So if you sitting there are just like the bum Max Winslow, listen to me right now. Go to Instagram and search up at the Pick and Roll Podcast. All one word. Underscore. Don't forget the underscore.
And that's a wrap.
Love it. See you guys.